So welcome to our USDA Technical Assistance Outreach Grant. Next slide, please. This grant was provided to Texas Tech University, Alabama A&M University, and Iowa State University. It is titled Empowering Minority Serving Institutions Food Safety Specialists to Write Successful Food Safety Outreach Grants. We are excited you are here today. Next slide, please. This is our team. I am Dr. Angela Shaw at Texas Tech University. We have Dr. Armitra Jackson, who's at Alabama A&M University, and Dr. Shannon Coleman at Iowa State University, as well as our grant extraordinaire, Dr. Christine Strohm. Next slide, please. Today, we are going to talk about that first page. This is how you win grants. This first page and how to craft it can be used in multiple ways. And we have a swift agenda for today, which is why consider it, why it could be conveyed, and where it can be used. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Christine Strohm, who is going to lead us through this presentation.
Thank you, Angela. And we will actually turn our videos off so the whole thing is more stable. The importance of the first page. That's our topic today. So why do we even talk about it? We have to write a full proposal and it has to convey a lot of things. And we want to start with all the things that we're excited about. But we want to keep in mind that when we write a proposal, we have a purpose in mind. And that purpose, the very primary purpose, is we want to win this award. We want to be ranked so that we make the cut for funding. Why is that important? When we consider the first page, we have to write to the people and to attract the attention of the people who will later decide who will get funded and who will unfortunately not get funded. So we have to keep in mind the attention span and the priorities of our readers. What is of most interest to the people who will read our proposals? Keep in mind, those of you who have not been on panels, not everybody will read the full proposal that you send in, but they have a say in the end when decisions are being made. So for those who will not read the full proposal, you have to make sure that everybody gets it. First thing, what is the first page not? It is not a summary. The summary is for public consumption. It will be published on the agency website once your project is funded. It is not part of the narrative. It's being uploaded in a different field. And for the USDA, it actually has to fit into a template that the USDA is providing. So do not conflate the two. They serve different purposes, and they have to be written with these different purposes in mind. Here we go with our first page. First impressions matter. Not just in human interactions, but also when you want to achieve a certain goal, such as getting funded. What reader will be pulled into your narrative if the beginning is boring? For instance, if you would start with a literature review and give an overview of what has been done in corn breeding over the last 100 years, nobody will be attracted to that. So this is something we should avoid. By reading the first couple of pages, reviewers will form an idea, not only of what you want to do, but also of who you are as a scholar, as a researcher, as a teacher, a communicator, And you want to make sure that this first impression is positive and sets the tone, because some bias will be created in the reader's mind. And these readers are the ones who will later decide whether your idea is creative, is the presentation is logical and analytical, up to date in your field, and whether you are capable of successfully executing your project. So we want to make sure that these first pages create bias in your favor. You want to make sure that at the end of the whole review process, you have at least one champion who will step up for your idea and who may be critical in swaying the panel and the decisions that are being made in your favor. In other words, what you want to do is you want to help reviewers like your idea. They should be excited about it and curious to what will be done and how it will be done in order to achieve that bigger goal that you outline in the beginning. Reviewers in these panels are confronted with three questions. What are we going to learn as the result of this project? After this money is spent, what do we know that we didn't know before? So your project's goals, your aims, and outcomes. That's the first thing. Why is it worth knowing? There's a lot of cool ideas that we could pursue and spend money on, but why is it worth our time and the money? That is reflection of the significance of the problem that you're promising to solve. And the last question is, how will we know that the stated goals have been achieved? In other words, do you offer metrics for success in your proposal? So, in other words, you have to sell your request for funding. You have to catch reviewers' attention. You have to convince them that the problem that you want to solve is important, and solving it will have a positive impact on stakeholders, on society in general. You want to invoke trust in your capacity, capability, and credibility, that you're able to and have the means and the support from stakeholders or from your institution to fulfill these tasks. And that is something we talked about yesterday. You have to make sure that it's clear that what you want to achieve is well aligned with the funding agency's current goals and priorities. That is something that has to come across in the first couple of pages. One way of getting there is to offer especially the quick reader, the reader who will not read all the 10, 12, 18, or 25 pages, a visual that encapsulates and conveys what your project will do. And I have one example here of a USDA SAS CAP grant that I think is doing a really good job. Without reading anything, you can tell what it is about. It's about cucurbits, squashes, cucumbers, this kind of produce. It shows that stakeholders had an input and stakeholders will reap the benefits. It states the objectives, and it even mentions all the tasks that will be achieved. So by just looking at this picture, I see the context and I see what will be done. That is a very effective way of attracting attention and keeping readers engaged. Because if I'm now excited about this, I want to see more of what will be done. Another way to attract attention is is to startle people. Startle in a way that gets them out of their rut, that presents something that makes them wonder, oh, where are we going here? That catches attention and hopefully translates into further attention. This one is another CAP grant, and it presents, this is the first paragraph of the whole proposal. It presents their idea as reverting our agricultural practice back to native prairie, which they call grassland 2.0. That is something that will rattle a lot of chains and will make people pay attention to see how this could be possibly done. And this was successful. I have a word of caution though. You don't want to alienate readers. You don't want to push them away or push them in a way that negative bias sets in right at the beginning. You want to make sure that they're with you. So if you want to go that way, I always recommend you show it to colleagues and let them give you feedback on how they perceive it before you send it off for review. So what should be on that first page? In my world, it's a very simple page. The first paragraph has to outline the problem you want to solve and why everyone should care. In other words, answer the question, so what? It's a problem, but who cares? Well, you have to explain why the funding agency should care and should spend money on solving it. You have to highlight the crucial need to address this issue and how better to highlight the significance of a problem than in terms of lives saved, health maintained or preserved, well-being, or money that's not been spent and wasted. In other words, societal benefits. That highlights the significance of the problem that you are tackling. Do not begin with a literature review of what has been done in the past. Do not start with a lengthy background discussion of how we got to this point, or do not start with a description of what you plan to do. That is something that I see a lot because as the proposal writer, you want to start with what you are excited about, and that's what you are planning to do. But that doesn't really match with what the reviewers are most excited about. They want to see what bigger problem are you going to address. So the problem has been identified, and now you have to explain, given that it's so important, why has it not been solved? In other words, what are the current limitations that are limiting us, that hold us back from solving it? What are the gaps in knowledge? What are gaps in technology? What do we have to change in order to be able to solve the problem? And here you can highlight the novelty, the innovation, the uniqueness of your approach, and also the relevance to the RFA, where they outline the current priorities. Third paragraph. Now you describe your solution, your unique approach. Clearly define your objectives, the goals that you want to reach, but do not go into much detail as to the steps that need to be taken to reach these goals. So your objectives, and then highlight the innovation and the impact on your field, because that is one of the review criteria that reviewers are looking for. What's new here? What do we learn that we couldn't do before that we can do now in the future, and that could be adapted or transferred to other problems? The fourth paragraph, explain to reviewers why they can trust you. In other words, show them that you've already done work in this sphere, in this area, that you have preliminary results that indicate that you will be successful, that you have publications, results already out and peer reviewed, that you did presentations at conferences or stakeholder meetings that are indicators for success, that you have an established team that has worked together in the past successfully, that you have support from stakeholders, from your institution, from others that will allow you to be successful. 4 paragraphs, that's all that goes on the first page. Style, keep in mind, not everybody that will read your proposal is an expert in your particular field. They are all good scientists. They're probably in fields that are related to yours, but they're not deep in your field. So avoid excessive technical and scientific jargon. Write for readers who want to like what you want to do, but are not experts in your field. Make sure they see the alignment with USDA priorities and make sure they understand that what you propose is feasible. Angela, I think you wanted to jump in here and show some examples.
Yes, I do. And just for you to know, your camera is on, so yes. So I'm going to show some examples of, number one, we're going to show this proposal so that we are doing right now. I wanted to kind of show how we presented for this funding opportunity. And everybody should be able to see my screen. We start with the bigger problem. And for this call that we got this grant for, they were looking for, this is straight out of the RFP, medium-sized diversified farms and operators. So we highlight that although this is the target audience straight out of the priorities, we highlight that only 25% of the MI are minority serving institutions, and that they have a specific target audience. On the first page, we show what the impact of that audience would be. So this is the population that we would serve. We put 942 potential different universities that could participate in. That's our first page. We're highlighting that what is the priority in there, who we're going to serve, the amount that we're going to serve. And when we go into our second page, we have some keywords that, again, are priorities in this call, where we talk about our overarching goals and then how we will achieve them. And this is a short paragraph of how we're going to achieve them. And then we go into our rationale and conclusion. So you can see we use a lot of bolding of letters. We have specific numbers here as we highlight. I'm going to show you another example. And this is an example for another call. And this is for our regional center. And on the first page, they were really talking about the need for fruit and vegetable produce safety. Smack dab on the first page is a figure that shows
Angela, we don't see it yet.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me stop sharing and start again.
Now we see it.
Perfect, thank you. So on the first page, we really hone into the why. Why does this matter? We take language specifically from the priorities for this call. We have a beautiful figure to show who would be impacted, what industries would be impacted. And then we already start on the first page with what are the challenges, what are our overarching goals for it, go into specific objectives, and how we will accomplish. Now, you probably have noticed between these two grants that I'm showing, we have the same headers. You'll find very shortly that I use about the same headers for all USDA grants. And then I always, within the first hopefully by the third page, I include my logic model for all my grant calls. The logic model is a great way to display the inputs, the outputs, and the accomplishments. And once again, as a reviewer, I just have to flip a couple pages and I can see everything that we are planning on doing for this grant. So I'm going to stop sharing now and turn it over to Dr. Strohm to continue.
All right, here we go. So now you have seen how we construct in general a first page, and Angela's examples made it fairly clear that the term first page is not restrictive. Her first pages were always 2 pages long. So 2 pages is fine, but you don't want to go much beyond that because, as I said earlier, time for reviewers is limited and they need to get it quickly. So no more than 2 pages. Now, I promised that we would talk about what else we can use this for. And the most important piece of what we can use it for is, if I could move on, here. We want to use it. I'm back to style. Oh dear.
Yes.
I want to move on. Here. We want to use this first page that was designed to gain attention and convey everything that's important for your proposal to discuss our project with the program manager. If our listeners were part of the webinar yesterday, we made it very clear how important it is to communicate with the program managers. And in order to be properly prepared and give the program officers a chance to understand what you want to do, you want to present the same thing, basically. When talking to the program officer, you want to discuss whether it's a good fit. But in order for them to give you feedback on that, they need to know what it is you want to do, the problem you want to solve, the means you want to use. So what you presented in sections 1 and 2 of your first page, that's of importance to the program officer. You want to talk to the program officer about expected results. That is something that will flow into the full proposal that you're writing later. How important is stakeholder involvement? What about matching funds? Is there anything else you want to know? So, first step, as I said, you prepare a concept paper for your program officer. You explain the problem and its significance, the current limitations, your solution, and your indicators for success. That is exactly what was in your first page. And in case your first page, like Angela's, was 2 pages, I would reduce it down to 1 page because program officers get a lot of emails and a lot of requests for feedback. So make it easy for them. Don't overburden them with too much text to read. Really present it very concisely, very quickly on 1 page. And the same information that you collected for your first page goes into this concept paper that you send to your program officer or program officers.
Christine, can I pause just for a moment and share my screen? I want to share with the group. You saw the final grant that I put in, but I want to share. I went back and I grabbed. This is what I presented to the program manager at the very beginning of this process. And it's not the same objectives because I did have that conversation with the program manager, but it was a short 1-pager. I had some ideas for 4 different objectives. I had some ideas of what I wanted to include in this grant, and I had some ideas of maybe who I wanted to serve. So I started off with just this one pager, and this is what I sent off to the program manager, and we had a conversation. And that's where we fused it into focused. She provided me the feedback of, you're doing a lot with that grant. You might want to consider focusing on a specific population, because this initial one, I was going to do minority serving institutions, NGOs, non-government agencies. We were going to have ad hoc meetings and all this. And she really focused me on thinking about this more holistically. So I wanted to briefly just share that to the group to show where it can go from to the final application by just having that conversation with your project manager. Dr. Stroh.
Yep, I will share my screen again because I am at the end of my presentation and I'm ready for questions now.
So I have a question for you, and I'm going to turn on my camera now. Related to that graphic that you showed at the very beginning, how often do you use graphics for that one pager in your background? Or should that be on page 2, or should that be part of the one pager? How have you used graphics part of that?
In general, I think for the one pager for the program officer, the illustration is not that important. If you have a nice one already, you can put it in, but I wouldn't spend too much time on it before you get feedback from the program manager. For the first 1 or 2 pages, an illustration can be extremely helpful. So I encourage people, but as usual, there is a but. If it's hard to put your idea and the impact that the solution of the problem has on stakeholders, on society, if it's hard to put it in a simple and compelling illustration, then don't try too hard. Then make your case and move on. But if it is easy, if you have a good idea, if you have maybe a grad student or a colleague who is really good at visualizing things, then go for it. Every reader who sees a meaningful and compelling illustration is already on your side. So I encourage you to do it, but don't do it if it is a stretch and if you don't have the support to make it really stand out and sparkle.
So I would say to this group, that's a to-do list item. You need to identify someone who is good at graphics. For me, I am not that person. But with my university, we do have people. It does take them a week at least to get me back sketches, but I can scratch something on a piece of paper and send it over to them to try and work it into something feasible. I don't have that capability. Now, if you have a research proposal, I have on the first page put a compelling picture or a compelling graph that tells more than what words can about the problem. I provided the example of showing the number of outbreaks based on the people or the food groups as an example. So you might be able to grab illustrations from other papers and things to really grab that attention. But being on a panel, and I know Shannon's on here as well, and we've been on a lot of panels, you are given, anywhere from 15 to 20 different proposals to read. And each of them are close to 20 pages long each, in addition to all the other things. Most grant packages are about 200 pages long. When you put all of the CVs in there and current and pendings and all of that. So if I have 20 of these to read and each of them are 200 pages, I'm going to the abstract summary and the first couple pages to really get a grasp of how much of this I'm going to really take in or not. So that's why those first couple pages are so important. Are
And
there any?
Angela, one more thing that I want to point out to people who don't do this on a regular basis. Government websites, whether it's the USDA, whether it's the EPA, whether it depends on what field you're working in, they put out a lot of reports that summarize information, that collect data and put them into nice illustrations. You can grab a lot of nice illustrations there. And even if you can't use them as is because you need to put other stuff in there, you can use them as a basis and give them to somebody and say, well, add ABC to it to make this reflect a reflection of my project. So look online, especially government reports, that is data you can rely on, and try to find basic input for your illustration there.
So are there any questions amongst the group that we can capture today? I'm looking at our chat box to see if we have any additional questions for today's topic on first pages or second pages or bullets.
There are no silly questions. Every question is welcome.